Hello, everyone. My name is Conrad on behalf of CameraStuff. Hope you're doing pleasantly well tonight. Thank you for joining yet another episode of In the Limelight, where we jump into the South African photographic and videography industry and we find some interesting people to talk to. So tonight we are joined by a very talented photographer, Melloh Melloh. Just to kind of introduce you guys to what he is capable of, let me just pop his Instagram feed, which by the way is in the comment section. So if you want to follow him, please do that. But just to give you a bit of a insight as to what the man is capable of. So here is his Instagram feed. So this is Melloh SA photographer. So very talented photographer, specializing in events photography, people photography. He does a bit of music as well. So we have some interesting questions to ask him. So thank you for joining tonight. And we're going to get some lovely insight from this very talented photographer. So as per normal, if you have any questions to ask, please do drop them in the comment section and we'll tackle them as we go along. So I think to get things started, please do introduce yourself. Tell us where you're from and we can get a bit of a chat going. Let me just close that. So with the chat, it's going to be visible on the right-hand side here, so everybody can see what everybody is saying. All right, so without further ado, I think let's get our guest in, shall we? Hello, Malusi, otherwise known as Melloh SA photographer. How are you doing?
How you say? I'm good. On your side?
I'm doing very, very well, thank you. What did you get up to today?
Today it's all about photography. It's all about talking about photography actually.
So what did you take photos of today?
Like isn't like right now?
And I'm asking you, what did you take photos of today? You said you did photography today.
Or today I was just chilling. I was using editing only all the day.
Editing today.
All for
Yeah,
me.
it's part and parcel of being a photographer. All of the editing
Yes,
that needs to be done every now and then is a huge workload, and it's not easy being a photographer.
all the time. I'm always editing because even today I was busy with some projects I was supposed to deliver. So, but right now I'm just done. I'm just focusing on this interview because I was waiting for it. Even now, it's my first time doing an interview, so I'm bit actually scared and excited at the
Don't be
same.
scared. It's going to be a lovely time. Don't worry, I'll be a good host from my side, and I'm certain we'll get a lot of questions from our audience as well, which is steadily building as we speak. So don't be nervous. Before you know it, 40 minutes would have elapsed already. So we're going to have a fun time chatting tonight.
Yeah,
All right. So I think to get things started, where are you from?
I'm from Gauteng, Tsakane, at Brakpan actually, around Gauteng.
And how did you get into photography? What got things going? What kickstarted your photographic career?
uh, for me in photography just like was a hobby. It was something that I really love and doing for hustling basically because actually our schooling, so school for me was not good, so I try to look something I can work on in terms of to be good on my side. So I
Mm-hmm.
had to join photography basically. That was my hobby every time doing shoots, and so that's where I am today because of a photography. I can say so.
Are you doing it part-time or full-time?
I'm doing full time photography. Every day I work
Good.
on the computer every time.
Yeah, it sounds like an awesome career, and we do are well. Should I say we're very keen to see your career flourish from here. As I said, you're very talented, and now we have a lot of questions to ask. Just to get into your how you get into photography, what gear you use, and I think that's our next question. So if you don't mind me asking, what camera did you use when you started off with, and what is in the camera bag today?
Actually, my first camera that I use, I was using a fifth M50 M100. That was my first
Hmm?
camera. at game. That was my first camera. So I started with it and doing some couple of shoots. Then I tried to buy when the times goes and I learned that it's not the professionally ones. I want to get maybe for professional in terms of for I try to get in second hands for 550D. That's where I
Yeah.
started to be good when it's come to professionally doing shoots actually.
All right. So what's in the camera bag today? Is it the
Um,
550D?
I just upgraded. I can say this month early. I just tried to get 70 actually.
Lovely camera that can 7D.
I'm just using a 70 a lens. I'm using a 50mm STM 1.8, and
That's a lovely lens as well.
also using with what you call a Sigma 17 to 70mm f 2.8.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's my lens I use. In terms of speed lights, I'm using TT 6800. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
TT6. Yeah, TT6. Yeah, it's a high sync. Most of the time when I'm shooting, I always using high sync. In terms of softbox, I'm using a 140 centimeter. Most of the time, I use one light setup.
Mm-hmm.
We pick up speed light, which is it's a tri-op. It's a high sync, but
Mm-hmm.
most of I prefer one light setup actually.
Mm-hmm. That makes a lot of sense. You know, people always tend to gravitate towards the one light setups because it does look natural, and especially when shooting outdoors, because our brains are used to seeing one light source. So it makes sense to replicate that with external, quote unquote, artificial lighting as well. So with the TT600, that from the Godox range, how did you get into flash photography? So making the choice to go with a speed light as opposed to using available light. So what was that experience like?
Uh, for me, I used to, I was having like even now I'm having a mentor. Most of the time, he was prefer he was preferring me to use a natural light,
Mm,
shooting light. Then there's this one time I tried to get in a studio. Then I shoot with the speed light. It's like this is good. So I think
mm,
lights can be better, and also advise me in terms of if if you can get it right from the camera with one light, you can make
mm.
sure every shot you can get. So I tried. Then I buy a TT 600 TT. So every time when I'm shooting, I'm using a lighting most of the time. I don't like in terms of natural light. I only use it when I'm shooting maybe outdoor in terms of weddings, because obviously you can't use the light while you're shooting. So
Mm.
yes.
And when you're using a flash, how long did it take you to master the use of a flash? And what advice would you give other photographers out there, specifically when it comes to using a flash?
Yeah. Uh, in terms of in terms of lighting,
Mm,
uh, in terms of light, I can say it depends on what you want to achieve, and
mm,
in putting a light basically. You can't just put a light in like I'm just wanna use this light because of this. It's better if you have a specific pictures you want to shoot or which shade you want to avoid. You can use the light basically. It don't.
mm.
It's not. It's a good thing most of the time using light. It's all about you what you want to achieve with that light basically when you shoot. So I can advise it if someone always wants to use a light, use it for a purpose. Don't just use a light because you won't get the picture that you want actually.
Mm. Now, a couple of good things which you are doing, obviously, is using the flash off camera. So you have it on a light stand and using a big softbox as well. So I think that's great advice for people getting into flash photography. Step number one would be to take the flash off the camera and to get yourself a big softbox. Typically, with that, you're going to get some awesome photos as well. So when using the flash off camera, on camera, you're going to get 2D dimensional flat images. So a good step from there would be to put the flash on a light stand and to use it around your subject to kind of shape and add dimension to your images. And with a big softbox to provide that very natural soft light as well. So when it comes to flash photography, I think those typically your first few steps getting into the artificial lighting game. Get the flash off camera and get yourself a big softbox.
Yeah,
All right. So, what is your favorite style of photography, genre of photography? I did show the people your Instagram feed. So, what do you enjoy doing most often, and why?
Actually, in terms of the most of the time, I love landscape. In terms of landscape, because I love to show background most of the time, but it's a limited. So far, I don't know many places because I'm using a crop sense. I wish to upgrade and using a full frame so I can know when I shoot. I show the background. That's why I love in terms of the landscape shooting basically.
So, when shooting landscapes, I see you incorporating that into your people photography as well. Like you do like to include the background as well. So, there's a bit of overlap here when you love doing landscape photography, but also when doing events and people and weddings and such. You don't blur the background, you actually do include the background as well. So if I can just pop that back onto the screen.
Yes.
And I think that's a good choice. So sorry, it may be a little bit small. I'll try and get a couple of images here. So just to get the background and the foreground in the shot in the frame as well, it's a good way of approaching photography because the environment in itself is also a character, quote unquote. So when people blur the background to heck, you kind of miss that extra character, and the background can say a lot about your subject and vice versa as well. So I think it's a good choice that you're making here by including some of the background in your photographs, just to provide that environment and to provide a bit of extra storytelling and to kind of make sense of everything, putting everything together. So this is where I got engaged, exactly that spot. All right, so just to continue on with our questions, actually, before getting into that, I see we have some comments. So, do you have friends and family watching?
Yes, I do have some photographers and also some people I did share the link so they
Wonderful.
can watch because it's my really first time doing a live. So people, I don't show myself, and it's rare to do live for me because I was
Mm.
struggling in terms of phone and stuff.
Yeah, hopefully it's not the last time. We're definitely going to flourish from here. So, we had Blessed saying, "Hi, boss," wavy emoji. Simon, big up, bro. I'm tuned in. Sim photography. Mkobele, thanks, Melloh SA. You're an inspiration. Tandeka saying inspired. So to everybody watching out there, please do drop your questions in the comment section or just provide a comment, a compliment, whatever you want. So get your fingers busy in the comment section. We can see all of your comments here on the right-hand side. So let's get a bit of a conversation going. So what moment in your career stood out where you told yourself, okay, this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. I love being a photographer. What was that specific moment where you told yourself, I belong? This is what I'm going to do. I'm a photographer. What memorable moment can you share with us?
I can say a memorable I can share in terms of I get an opportunity of working on TV. So
Mm-hmm.
so when that
Now tell us
that's
a bit about
something.
that.
Um,
Tell us about that.
yeah. So I get an opportunity to appear on TV, and I see people how they are react when it's come to how I become. So it's like, oh, this is interesting. I feel like for me this is a good thing for me. It's like I'll do it forever because I always get some friends say, "Hi, let's go to work," and like I'm of it. Like I'm good when it's come to work. I only I only do photography 24/7. So I was like, this is
Mm.
good for me. That's where I get inspired in terms of doing photography. I also do even in photography, videography on that side.
It's wonderful, wonderful. Right. Do you have any challenging moments that you can share with us that you may have experienced in your career? Some difficulties that you may have experienced initially, and how did you overcome those challenges?
Uh, can you
Hi, can you
repeat
hear
the
me?
question?
Yeah, sure,
Yes,
no
yes.
problem. So, in terms of the start of your career, what challenging experiences did you have, and how did you overcome those experiences?
I can say I got a challenge in terms of I got in a bad situation in terms of they robbed all my equipment actually last year. So I was like, yo, that was my really challenging uh, situation. I was like, yo, it's hard for me, but I try to do my best. It's like I can't just give up on photographer. Just
Mm.
like I just can't give up because
And I think on topic, how do you stay inspired? How do you keep the creative juices flowing? Like you say, don't give up, which is easier said than done. But how do you keep yourself inspired? How do you keep the engine revving?
uh, it's all about every week. I was always doing shoots, always
Mm.
doing and trying to get some models. And even it's not easy to find models in nowadays. Some people they don't like shooting. They think somehow, but I try my best to get someone who can trust and say like,
Hmm.
let's try to create something and see what we can get actually. So then yeah, that's I motivate myself doing shoots every time.
Yeah, so by the sounds of it, it's a case of just keeping busy. Don't give yourself any breaks or times off. So it's about keeping the juices flowing by keeping busy the whole time. I think that's what you're saying, right?
Yes, yes,
That makes complete sense. Yeah. So as a creative person, you need to keep those gears operating the whole time. I think when you give yourself some time off, or when you give yourself, or when you take time away from photography, it may stretch on for a little bit longer than what it needs to. And so it's very difficult to get yourself back into the game. So by keeping yourself busy with photography persistently, like every now and then, obviously take a bit of a break, but by keeping yourself busy within photography more often than not, it just keeps inspiration going and keeps the gears going. And it's very good advice to aspiring photographers out there. If you do find yourself in a bit of a writer's block or you don't have any inspiration, just pick up a camera and shoot something. Like as you said, find a model, go to an interesting location, share ideas, talk to other photographers. Yeah, just keep yourself busy. Don't shy away from the industry. Don't shy away from your creativity. It's the worst thing that can be done as a creative person is when you take time away and then complacency steps in, and that's a terrible thing to happen when it comes to the creative mind.
yeah.
All right. So, what are you currently working on? So within the last week or two, what are you busy with, and what do you plan to do in the next year or so? So what's in the pipeline? Basically, that's what I'm asking.
Or in terms of plan of this coming months or weeks actually.
Yeah, yeah. So what's in the pipeline as far as Melloh Melloh is concerned?
So far it's quiet. I don't have something in mind. I don't have something in mind, but I think something will come up. Something, but
Mm.
so far that's quiet. I was just focusing on finishing the projects. Yeah, but so far
Oh,
it's quiet on my side.
no, it's good to be busy, as mentioned. So from Simon, a question. Our first question from the audience. Thank you so much. Do you seek feedback from peers, mentors, or online communities to gain different perspectives on your work?
Yes, yes. I really do get some many people ask me how do I shoot, how because most of the time they always have this mentality in terms of if you get maybe a camera that is good, you can shoot better. It's like
Mm.
I like I always tell people one thing: if you get a camera and a good lighting, it's all about you, what you want to achieve and everything.
Mm.
Because many people every time when I'm posting in terms of there's this group SA photograph. I always posting say like I'm shooting with 550D. I get
Mm.
many yo guy like I'm also using 550. How did you achieve this? Can you please give me the
Mhm.
settings? I always tell them one thing. I can give you my settings. You don't know the time what I'm shooting and
Yeah.
what is on my mind when it's come when I'm shooting. So I always advise them in terms of that on that. But get it right from the camera. before
Mm-hmm.
you want to take your pictures to be good actually.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, getting the good camera and lighting, that's only 5% of the work. From there, it's all about visual literacy, understanding composition and exposure, all of these extra little details one needs to understand about
Yeah,
your visual vocabulary, how you see the world, how you build a vision, and how you interpret that on a digital still. Building that knowledge pool is integral when it comes to any creative field, but photography especially. Learning how to read light and how to create light, learning how to compose an image. People talk about the rules of thirds and the Fibonacci spiral. There's a lot to uncover and unpackage with photography. So it's not just strictly the camera and the light. As what you say, you have this camera and this light, and people ask you what the settings are. It's a kind of a redundant thing to ask settings because you need to be at the same location and reading the same light and understanding the image from your point of view. So it's not like baking a chocolate cake. Like there's a lot more to understand about photography and putting everything together.
yeah.
All right. So everybody watching out there, if you have your questions to ask, because I do have some questions my side to ask still, but I do want to get the audience involved still. We have a nice audience going. So if you are watching, please get your fingers busy. Ask your questions in the comment section. I think in light of what Simon asked, just to put that on a screen again, mentorship. How important do you see the role as a mentor? Like, are you mentoring someone at present? Are you mentoring people? And what qualifies a person to be a good mentor? Like, what are the qualities necessary to be a good mentor?
So far on my side, I don't mentor. I don't mentor anyone, but I wish I can do. Even I'm not good in terms of teaching, in terms of
Mm-hmm.
to someone. If that someone can understand me better, because I love to do most in terms using my hands, not in terms of talking most of the time. It's better if I can do if I'm shooting, you also shooting, so I can tell okay, this
Yes,
picture
yes.
is can just adjust in terms of this and this. So it's also about you if you do copy what I'm saying to and because in terms of people we also have many different of style of shooting because when it comes to photograph it's an art you can just shoot and tell me more about that picture you taking so I think I'd love to get
I love that, yeah.
yeah I'd love to get someone I can mentor.
Yeah, I think that's something we need to do more often as photographers, just to talk about photos, just to talk about the ins and outs and our creative visions and what keeps us inspired. So I think in South Africa, we are quite gear obsessed, when it comes to cameras and lighting and whatnot. I think going beyond that and talking about visual literacy, what inspires us, what makes us happy when we look at photos, what qualifies a good photo, something you described as just talking about what you want to create, what your intentions are. Now, I think we need to have more of those discussions as opposed to just talking about cameras and lenses the whole time. It's all about seeing the world and interpreting that from your point of view and sharing these images. I would think that's art in a nutshell. It is expression and communication and community. And we definitely need more of that in the South African industry.
Yeah, yes.
So another question here, getting it right, well, not a question, it's a comment. So getting it right in the camera as pointed out by you. So I think with this comment in mind, what is your post-processing workflow like? So how dependent, quote unquote, are you on Photoshop? Like you speak a lot about getting it right in camera, straight out of camera. But what is your Photoshop process like? Like how often do you spend time in Photoshop? How long do you spend time on an image on average? Yeah. So once you have the photos on a memory card, what's the process thereafter?
um for me in terms of on a photo when I'm editing most of the time I'm using Lightroom before I go to Photoshop. It also depends on the picture, uh, what I want to achieve with it. If I want to do a retouching of beats, because most of the time, that's why I love to say get it right from the camera. In terms of when you go to editing, you don't just edit. Uh, you don't just to shoot to edit. Basically, you just shoot to get it right from the camera. When you go to
Yeah.
edit, you just do in terms of basic editing. Yeah. So in terms of Photoshop, most of the time, even 15 minutes when I'm editing one picture, for me it's enough. But in terms of Photoshop, I just do in terms of balancing shadows
Yeah.
and in colors, and do color grading on same on Lightroom.
So with Photoshop, how long did it take you to master Photoshop? Well, mastering Photoshop is an endless endeavor, I would say. But just to get used to Photoshop and Lightroom, like how long did that take you to integrate that into your photography? Because that is something people do struggle with, is be editing half of photography.
Yeah. In terms of Photoshop, I'm using Photoshop 2019. It's a old
Mm?
photo. It's a really old Photoshop. In terms also on a Lightroom, it's a old Lightroom. It's a classic Lightroom.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah. So when did you start using that? Was it at the same time you started doing photography? Because I know some people start off with graphic designing and they kind of fall into photography, but it's vice versa for some people. They take some time to get used to Photoshop and Lightroom. So, how long was that process like for you?
For me, it didn't take long, but I
Mm.
can say more than 2 months. I was like, I think I'm good for it. But most of the
Good.
time, I was always using Lightroom most of the time.
Mm.
Photoshop, I just adjust in terms of learning how to do beauty shots, and it's like I think it's time for me to get in Photoshop and understand better Photoshop. Even I'm not better on it, but I try my best to understand some other settings and everything.
Mm. Yeah, as I said, yeah, learning Photoshop or quote unquote mastering it is an endless endeavor. There's always something new to learn. So I
Yeah.
want to revert back to what Simon said here. We talked about mentorship. So communities, what communities, you mentioned essay photography not too long ago. But as far as communities are concerned, how important is criticism, like receiving and giving criticism, talking about people's images? Like, how involved are you in the industry? Is it something that you like seeing, or do you think people tend to get a little bit overboard sometimes?
Mm, I don't know how to explain because I don't have a clear about it. I really don't know how to.
Yeah, so when critiquing photos, if somebody had to ask you, what can be improved about my photo? Now, there's a level of harshness that can be applied. People call it tough love. So sometimes in the industry, people can go a little bit overboard. Like, I want to know from you, what's your balance like? Like, how critical can you be about someone's photo? Like, what details do you normally point out to people, what they can improve on? And how involved are you with that? Like, people normally ask you to judge their photos.
Yes, yes. There's some people who always ask me how this photo is like the photo is good. You just lack in terms of lighting. You did maybe a harsh lighting. Maybe if you try to not uh, take your lighting to be close to the project, to
Mm,
the subject actually. So make sure when you shoot you balance your lighting, and
mm,
that's I always and tell people to understand better lighting most of the
mm.
time. Yes.
That's a very good approach. So I want to ask you, starting out, going back when you first picked up your camera, if you had a time machine, what advice would you give yourself?
In terms of
Now, so in terms of when you started out, like if you could give yourself advice, your younger self advice, what would that be?
I always give it advice for myself to always take a good images that talk to people.
Mm. So, what
Yes.
do you think that entails? So, what do you think is an image that speaks to people? How would you clarify that? How would you describe that to a person?
Uh, it depends on the picture that I
Mm,
took. Most of the time, they always ask me, "Yo, this picture is good. Can you tell me more about it?" And it's like, okay,
mm,
then I tell about in terms of background, why did I take this picture here? And most of the time, every time when I'm posting the picture, I make sure that I do a caption so people can understand better the picture, why I did
hmm.
take picture of it. So most of the time, I always do that.
Yeah, sorry, I threw you a bit of a curveball there. That's a very difficult question to answer when it comes to photography. Like, how do you clarify a good image? How do you describe an image that communicates with people? And that's an endless topic when it comes to photography. We did a big discussion on that a couple of months ago when it comes to building an image from scratch that communicates and talks to people. And it's an endless discussion. So I think it's about a moment that is captured, building empathy, communicating with your audience that this moment was natural, it wasn't forced, it wasn't imposed on someone, and having good communication and a rapport with your client, the quote unquote subject on a day as well is incredibly important. So I think these images that reflect genuineness and authenticity, those are the ones that tend to talk to people. And you see that a lot in your photos as well. I think you do a fantastic job getting people to be comfortable and to be natural. Do you have any advice there when it comes to getting natural expressions and posing people? Like, do you have any advice for people to get images that don't look forced or static or frozen or uncomfortable?
Uh, yeah, I think I do have. I think I do have.
Mm?
Most of the time, when I'm shooting, I make sure that a model or a client to feel comfortable. Uh, Make sure you laugh and make sure you feel comfortable everything what you are doing. And
Yes.
my style of shooting, I always make sure when it's come to model, if you shoot, uh, which side of a selfie you use most when you're doing a
Mm.
selfie. If you're indoor or if you everywhere, just give me that side and feel comfortable and always chin up and make sure you are good. Actually. So that's always I give them kind of advice so they can feel comfortable and feel everything to be good. Actually.
Yeah, that has to be repeated. That is excellent advice coming from you. So when people take selfies, they normally know where the good side is, what angles to create from. So you can actually ask your client to take a selfie of themselves and observe as they are taking photos of themselves, what side they tend to use, what angles of the face, if there's a tilt in the face, how high they hold the camera, etc.,
Yes.
etc. So there's a lot to learn about a person's
Yeah.
um, yeah, comfortable way of posing by looking at them taking photos of themselves because they know what looks good and you
Yes.
just need to replicate that.
Yes.
Yeah, it's all about communication on a day as well, just making people feel comfortable. And like if you are static, frozen, and uncomfortable, it's going to reflect onto your subjects as well. So as a photographer, you do need to lead with energy. You need to be the party animal. You need to invigorate people. So there's a lot to be said about that topic as well. So yeah, just to commend you on your work yet again. I do see in your photos how comfortable and easygoing and relaxed people are. And I think that's incredibly important when it comes to photographing people. So well done.
Yes. Yes. Thank you about that.
All right, so I have two more questions to ask, but I want more questions from the audience. We have a huge crowd going still. So if you are watching, please give us some questions. I would love to get some questions from the audience as well. So, question from our side is we've kind of touched on it here and there, but when you give, what advice would you give aspiring photographers out there? So, newcomer photographers, what advice would you bestow upon them?
Um, Advice I can get any upcoming photographer and videographers: always shooting. If you see something that is good for you, just taking a camera, even your phone, just taking a camera and shoot, and tell more about what you're shooting, what is inspire you in terms of shooting that. Yeah, that's the advice I can get. Always shooting if you are really want to be a great photographer, because it's important to shoot every day so you can get
Mhm.
better uh, day by day, so you can be perfect.
100%. Yeah, I do agree emphatically with that. Keep shooting, keep being inspired by keeping yourself busy. There's always something out there to take photos of, even if you feel a bit in a black hole, as they call it, having that writer's block. Just try out something different as well. So you dabbled with landscape photography, so it doesn't necessarily need to be the same genre of photography over and over again. So if you're
Yeah.
sick and tired of taking photos of people, try something different: landscape photography, bird photography, macro photography, whatever it may be. Always have camera in hand, and maybe there will be overflow. So things that you learn from landscape photography now you can apply to the other genres of photography as well. All right. So last question from my side. Do you have any shout outs to people out there who helped you on your journey? So people who gave you a bit of a helping hand or some good advice, and what was some of that advice?
Now,
Sorry, did you get the question? Hello.
can you please repeat the question, because on my side the network was
Oh,
bit.
no worries whatsoever. I'll just give it a moment because you're all right. This thing's better now. Can you hear me? Hello. Can you hear me? Test, test, 1, 2.
Can you try to repeat the question, because
Okay.
on my side the network was
All
somehow.
right. Okay. So it's a kind of a two-part question. So throughout your career, what good advice in particular did you receive from friends or other photographers that really helped you out on your journey? And what was that advice?
Can you please try to repeat the question, because my network was really
Oh, no worries.
on my side.
So maybe if you can,
Yeah,
just jump
yeah,
into
now
the
it's better.
private chat. Is it better now? Okay. So let me repeat. So, what helpful advice did you receive from other people, photographers, friends, and family? And what was that advice that helped you out on your photographic journey? Seems we are struggling with signal at the
Are you still
moment.
there?
I'm still here, yes. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pop the question in a private chat. If you do receive it, you can answer from there. Otherwise, if we are still
Okay, yeah, yeah,
struggling,
yeah. Now it's better.
all right, let me try that. So just hold on, people. Let me just quickly type this in.
Um, in terms of the network,
All
it's
right,
give
let
me
me
a
see
problem
if you
on
can
my side.
still
I don't
hear
know it's your
me.
side or on my side, because it's BT.
We'll normally have these internet problems. So if you can hear me, there's a little chat box in the bottom here. And I just popped the question into that. So maybe from there you can answer the question.
Yeah, now I think I can hear you.
Okay, otherwise, as we are struggling, people will have an opportunity to ask a question. So let me go through the comments here. So getting right from camera, did pop that up. Danko Melloh and big up Mtwana. You are taking Sasakani to another level. All right, Melusi, are you still struggling with signal? Can you hear me?
Yeah. Now I think it's better than
Is it better
before.
now?
Yes.
All right, so reply to this question now. All right, there seems to be still a bit of a lag.
On my side, does not appear in the question.
All right, so if you can't hear me, maybe it's still a bit of a lag. Remember, the question is in a private chat here, so if you can read that and answer the question, we can probably call it an end to the chat thereafter. If not, we can probably call it ends now if we're still struggling.
It's not showing yet. I was trying to check in private chat, but I don't see anything on my side.
All right, so I'm going to try one last time. What advice did you get from other people, like other photographers, friends, or family, that really helped you out on your journey, and what was that advice?
A bad advice or a good advice?
Both.
The good advice most of the time I get from photographers is like you're taking a good pictures. You can also continue doing uh, and doing shoots so you can be more better than the way you are, but you're coming all right most of the times. Like this is a good motivation, and yeah.
All right. Yeah, it's always good to receive comments like that. And on the bad advice, so what was the worst advice you ever received?
So far I don't think I did get some bad advice. I
No
don't
bad
think
advice. Okay.
I don't think so.
Right. So I think with that, since we're struggling with signal, Melusi, thank you so much. It was a very, very awesome interview. So it was your first interview. Hopefully, it's the first of many from hereafter as well. So you are definitely on an upward trajectory as far as your career is concerned. You're taking amazing photos, and we can't wait to see how your photographic career flourishes from here. So thank you so much for your insightful comments. I'm certain people out there learn quite a lot, and also as a means of introducing you to the world as well. As a reminder, your link is provided in the comment section. So to everybody watching out there, to please follow Melusi, otherwise known as Melloh, SA photographer. So thank you. I don't know if you have any shout outs, people that you want to thank.
Yes. I I would I would really love to thank to everyone who get an opportunity to watch this my first interview. Even I was scared, but excited at the same time. But I really appreciate, and also for in terms of CameraStuff to give me the opportunity of
Of
to
course.
do a live interview. I really appreciate a lot, and thank you very much, guys, and thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate.
It's a huge pleasure. So I think with that, it's going to be a good night and a pleasant night further to everybody out there watching in Facebook and YouTube land. So thank you for joining. Do subscribe to Camera Stuff's YouTube channel, or go and like the Camera Stuff Facebook page, and you'll be kept updated as far as future interviews are concerned. So this is something that we do once a week, maybe twice a week. So if you want to stay abreast as far as the local industry is concerned, and meeting new creative people, like-minded fellows and gals out there in the photographic and videography world of South Africa, yeah, as I said, do subscribe and do follow CameraStuff. We have more people to introduce you to, more questions to ask these people, and to gain their insights and commentary as far as the local industry is concerned. So thank you to everybody out there watching. So from me, Conrad, on behalf of CameraStuff, it's going to be a goodbye and a good night